E equals MC cubed, guys.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Oh, fuck. Lore Boys here. Get ready to stick your dick in the gom jabbar as we dive headlong into the sand looking for worms and drugs.
When your the Jam Gabar was sticking to your dick, well, I guess which needle is smaller, I guess, would win. Yeah.
I thought the gom jabbar was the box, but it's been years since I read the book Dune by Frank Herbert. Hi, everybody. My name is Ethan Palmer. I'm joined, as always, by James Miller and Peter
James
O'Donoghue.
Miller. I thought it was the needle,
And
but it could
Peter
be the box.
O'Donoghue.
I don't know. Let's Google it, huh? You guys can vamp, right?
I thought the Gom Jabbar was the
it is a
box.
needle.
Oh, it is the
Gom
needle.
jabbar is a needle. Apparently,
Dang.
yeah.
I
with
knew
the
that because
poison
it's a loot in World of Warcraft, a trinket for rogues. And also, I just read the first 2 chapters of the book recently. Where they talk
okay.
about the Jam Gabar.
Okay.
There you go.
I've been listening to a 8-hour Dune Essentials YouTube video by a guy called Quinn's Ideas, which has been recapping everything for me. I'm like 2.5 hours in. So
Okay. Well, don't listen to that. This is the better
Okay.
one. We're not going to talk
of
about
course.
anything from the books.
Fuck him, actually.
or the movies at all. This is going to be completely spoiler free. If you're new and you watched the Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies and you're like, that was cool, I want to learn more. You'll learn more about the universe, I promise. But if you haven't seen it and you're worried about spoilers, I promise you, there's none. There was going to be. There was going to be. I didn't even update my intro because I still wrote that this is about the ecology of Arrakis and the various factions vying to control melange, which is the immortality-inducing worm poop that the planet is known for. None of that is true. I then was going through the Dune Encyclopedia, which is a 700-page series of articles compiled by a collaborator with Frank Herbert, Willis McNeely, and just found a cool entry and decided to do an entire episode on that entry.
Wait,
instead.
All right.
You already lost me on worm, the immortality-inducing worm poop? Is that spice?
The Shai Hulud, the great sandworms, produce spice.
And spice is. I thought spice gave you space travel, not immortality.
No. The Navigator
your
Guild uses it to like predict the future so they can safely navigate through space at light speed.
Yeah,
Sort
pretty
of.
much.
Yeah.
It does give you the ability to travel faster than light. That already exists if you don't have spice. It just lets you do it better than anyone else.
Safer.
It does also extend your life by several hundred years. Use of it, depending on when you start using it and how much you take, like what your daily dose is, it can extend your life like up to 400 years, I think, is like the longest example. So
it cured my COVID.
Yeah, exactly. You also put all that ivermectin up your butt.
Yeah.
Don't forget about that. Big thanks to Mayonnaise Man and Ethan Hunt for joining the Patreon this week. First Blood for requesting Dune over at discord.gg/loreboys. It goes to longtime listener Toodles, who requested it over 4 years ago.
Wow.
Sorry for the wait. I don't know why I waited so long because I had an absolute blast reading it. It is exactly my type of episode where I was like going to do the main content and then realized there's this 700-page encyclopedia about other dumb bullshit that's just in universe. Thank you, Mr. Herbert.
And his son.
I would shout out everybody who requested it, but when I searched Dune in the lore request channel on the Discord, discord.gg/loreboys, there was like, I think 47 hits or something. I was like, yeah, I'm not going through all these.
Yeah.
I just found the oldest one. So let's start as I always start. We kind of already did this, but
Yeah.
what do you know about Dune?
Sorry, we're excited. We're excited about this one. I bought the book and I've read it every time I've left my apartment and I've been on the bus. So I've covered 2 chapters in the last year.
So Jamie hasn't opened the book. He hasn't cracked the spine in 4.5 years.
Yeah. So I've read 2 chapters in the last year and I liked it. I knew a little bit about the characters for when I got to see the movie, which I watched the first one last week. And then, or the week before last, and then the second one last week with Peter. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty fresh on the movies. I'll admit the first one I watched second screen while playing games, so I might have missed some stuff there. But 2, I was dialed in. I was at the movie theater. I was either look at that or look at Pete. So I was looking at the movie.
Yeah.
And Cody, he's on your left.
It's true. I did sneak a couple peeks, but it was fun movies. But like, I do feel like even though you watch the movies, there's a lot of exciting stuff that happens, and you kind of see the greater arcs of the stories. But you can tell you're missing so much detail from this like huge fantasy. Just from reading the first couple chapters of the book, I knew more about the movie than just watching the movie. Like it felt like it fleshed it out a lot more. And then even after that, just seeing small comments everywhere, there's so much to build up off of the movies. So don't worry about spoilers, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like Frank Herbert, who wrote the original Dune in the 60s, I want to say. I didn't look it up before this episode. Like he wrote a 700-page encyclopedia after he had written 4 books. He was going to write a prequel, but then he had untimely passing, and his friend Willis McNeely ended up compiling like these articles into this 700-page book. But like that exists in the books themselves as well, right? Where it's like the fiction. So he does a lot of world building.
His son too even added to even more to it, right? Like,
his son continued. People don't consider the son's books canon, like they're critical of them or whatever. But I think like if he's going to be that into world building, it's impossible to translate all that to the screen, right? I don't remember the book being particularly dense, but maybe it was. I'm pretty trial by fire with the Malazan series, which is very similarly like huge world building. And obviously, I'm a fan as I host a pseudo world building podcast, and I do all the world building episodes, I guess. But
the OG Dune was first published in 1965.
65. There you go.
So it was probably written in the early 60s or late 50s, because I think it probably took a while. The printing house that picked it up, which I think people may know because I've seen it in Discord, Chilton Books, which was a printing house better known for publishing auto repair manuals.
I did read that actually.
Yeah, so you can get your forklift certification, and then on the same shelf is an immensely dense sci-fi universe set 15,000 years in the future for some fucking reason.
Yeah,
the 60s were a wild time.
I did read that he got rejected by a bunch of publishers until like somebody at that Chilton publishing house who published these auto repair guides just really liked his story and his ideas and was like, let's do it.
If you talk to funny thing about auto repair guides, if you talk to car mechanics in Quebec, most of them call all of the parts just the English name but with a French accent, like the windshield, the wipers, all that, because all of the car auto things used to just come in English. So when they read about repairing the cars, they didn't have the French words to. They got in the 60s. They got all the English ones from the Frank Herbert's house.
Exactly. It's like vraiment Mazda besoin un replacement ou besoin comme changer de spice dans le worm à l'intérieur.
The worm est tout busté, man.
Yeah, the worm est tout busté. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Pete, do you want to talk about what you know about Dune? If we want to talk about the story at all too, we can.
Honestly, even briefer. I've seen all 3 films. I only found out there was a TV show apparently last week before going to see the second movie with Jamie, and then I was listening to like lore videos by again another YouTuber, Quinn's Ideas on YouTube, just because I wanted to catch up, because I also want to do a Dune episode at some point, because I got really into the film when we went to see it, and I was like, it's good. It's hype. It does feel Lord of the Ringsy. Like you only get a good adaptation every 20 years, and then it's just Disney sludge, and then something like we're gonna get something wicked in the 2040s, guys. I can feel it in my waters. Okay, like it's gonna be so good. But yeah, 3 films and then YouTube lore. I haven't lined up the audiobook yet. I know it's available easily to find literally anywhere on the internet, and I want to, but just the movies. I know people hate the 80s movie with Kyle MacLachlan in it. It is bad, but I do consider it fun bad. And it's just on Amazon Prime. Like, it's just...
I think that's the consensus, yeah. I read the book, 5 years ago or something at this point. Really enjoyed it. Only read the first one. Saw Denis Villeneuve's, or Dennis Villeneuve, excuse me, first Dune. Haven't seen the...
if Le Worm est tout fucké, it is Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
from Montreal.
Montreal.
Wait, when was he born? Was he born before they got the French translation on the auto manuals?
Yeah. I mean, almost certainly, because the new French laws in Quebec are relatively quite new.
I know. Actually, he was born in 1967, so Dune predates Villeneuve.
Wow.
Yeah. So read the book. Obviously, really loved it. For anyone who doesn't know the setting at all, it takes place on this desert planet Arrakis. There are noble houses. Think of very like feudal Europe, I guess, with these like noble houses. They serve an empire. House Karina.
Battletech stole all of this. If any of you have ever listened to our older episodes,
where Battletech stole a ton, you can tell. Like, I mean, just the wording jihad, it stands out obviously a lot as like a strange word in Western culture. Also, well, there's a lot of parallels to 40K that you can kind of find in here as well.
Yeah, you just think of like feudal Europe, but then scale up instead of countries, scale up to a galaxy, and instead of controlling certain towns, you're controlling certain planets. And they all have different relationships and different borders, and there's like one bigger. There's like an emperor who leads over all of them, who says
Baron. It is. It's Christopher Walken's Shaddam. I think if you thought auto repair manual guys love Dune, boy howdy. Everybody who made sci-fi after 1965 also fucking loves Dune. So you've definitely seen parts of this story before.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't think Herbert was one of the. I think the big three was what Asimov, Heinlein, and Clarke.
Foundation, yeah.
I think we're considered like the big three in early sci-fi, but I think Herbert just came later than them. Like, he wrote Dune in 1960; those were around in like the 30s and 40s. But I think definitely would have been drawing heavy inspiration from them because you just said it. Foundation is very similar in that there's kingdoms out in space and they control like different pockets. Like
I read the first 3 chapters of that one too.
There you go.
You need to get on the bus more, dude. You're never going to read anything.
Who needs books when you got podcasts, right? That's what we're here for.
There you
go. So anyone who doesn't know the setting, feudal space, there's this desert planet Arrakis, which has this substance called spice or melange, which is super, super valuable to the Spacers Guild, which is this very, very powerful union, essentially, of interdimensional truckers that control all movement of like freight and military forces and things like that in the galaxy. So they're hugely powerful. The calendar, so the numbers that we're going to go through, the first number that we start with is 7565 BG. BG being before Guild. So the calendar is split into before the Guild was formed and after the Spacing Guild was formed. That's how impactful it is.
Yeah.
So they want this melange, this spice, which is only found on the desert planet of Arrakis, which I said earlier is produced by worm. It's essentially worm poop. The worms produce it.
Yeah, it's like oil. Like, everybody wants the land that the oil's on because you're going to be the richest house, which means you'll have the most influence, which means you'll be able to travel the best or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the worms are protective of it. Don't take kindly to strangers on their land. And yeah, hijinks ensue, I guess. Like I said at the beginning, we're not going to talk about any of that, though. We're not going to talk about the desert planet Arrakis.
Hijinks ensue is a nice way to just gloss over. Just like there are multiple intergalactic holy wars. Anyway, billions die.
Yeah.
On to today's subject.
I think in the Dune books between Herbert and his son, I think there's 7 like great jihads, like crusades, essentially, throughout the books where they're doing stuff. I don't know how the second movie ends because I haven't seen it. I know how the book ends. I imagine the movie ends at the same point as the book, but I don't know. So we're not going to touch it. So no spoilers, but we are going to talk about some cool in-universe world building stuff.
Cool. In the most of the books, they focus on like the great houses and then like the people from the sand, that like live there. The Fremen, yeah.
The people from the sand.
Yeah, they had the blue eyes. Well, that's what they are.
The blue eyes is from spice. Taking spice for extended periods of time will turn your eyes blue.
One thing that won't be a huge spoiler is the main guy's eyes become blue throughout the second movie because of the exposure to
Paul Atreides. Yeah.
Paul Atreides.
So the primary source for this episode, or primary sources, I should say, will be the appendices in Frank Herbert's original Dune, as well as the Dune Encyclopedia compiled by Willis McNeely from some 40-plus articles Herbert had written. From the encyclopedia, we have a timeline with the year split into the two main epochs I mentioned, before Guild and after Guild. The history of Dune's setting does start with Earth. It's called Terra, so you don't get scared and think you're actually in the book or anything like that.
Okay.
Though it's an alternate history Earth. So the third entry on the timeline, just as an example, from 16,400 to 16,000 BG, before Guild, it states Roman Empire arises and conquers the known world, except for China, which resists until 14,400. So the Roman Empire is a thing. China is a thing. It is Earth. Again, kind of similar to Warhammer 40k, where they got Emperor of Mankind
Syrian scholars invent truck repair manuals, and that's
exactly right. There's about 10 millennia of classic Empire shenanigans before our subject for this episode is born.
It's just playing like yakety sax, and it's like entire groups of people killing each other.
10,000 years. That's like all of our human history, right? Like back to like pre-civilization. So
yeah, we were still in like there was like a kilometer of ice over Europe 10,000 years ago. Right?
So Ibrahim Vaughn Holtzman was born on Liesco 2 in the year 7593 before Guild. Smack dab in the middle of what we would call the Great Dark Ages, or the Age of 10,000 Emperors. So again, Great Dark Ages sounds very similar to Warhammer 40k in a lot of ways. It's not because
we did a Dark Age in BattleTech as well. It's all very,
It's not because Warp Storm rolled through, and we will talk about the specific cause for the Great Dark Ages specifically, but essentially there was an empire that couldn't sustain itself, dissolved, becomes the Age of 10,000 Emperors, because this once great galaxy spanning empire has now broken up into 10,000 different factions, all kind of looking out for themselves.
I'd guess, and stop me if this is too spoilery, the calendar breaking it up is like the reunification thing. Because if you just got guys high enough on fucking spice to, in my head, it's always been just like navigate through asteroids at light speed, right? Which is what the Navigator Guild does, or the Guild Navigators rather. So like before that, like, and this is the same thing that happened with BattleTech, which is they definitely stole and kind of rejiggered to fit into BattleTech from Dune, was like the relays, whose name I've forgotten at this point. When the relays went out between like kingdoms and BattleTech, the periphery and like the frontier galaxies were just like, it takes way too fucking long to get information to you people. You live in the Dark Ages now. Goodbye.
Yeah, so we will talk about it. That is pretty much it. We're not going to talk about the Guild very much. They come again. We're in 7,000 years before Guild, right? So we're not going to talk about them. We will get right up near them in this episode, but this episode won't touch on the Guild at all, or how their navigators work. We won't talk about Melange, because faster than light travel is possible, and you did kind of brush on exactly the reason why the outer clans failed was slow communications, right? It's
I'm like familiar enough with shit that stole from Frank Herbert.
Exactly.
I can guess what he may have.
Yeah,
like,
it will
the seeds he planted.
It will be more or less the same thing, but we will get into it. So
I can imagine that as a real problem too. Like even in smaller scale, like people back before we had email and things like that. If you're just like too far away from comms, you might keep fighting a war that you shouldn't, like Andrew Jackson or
Well, Christ, the last movie I worked on before the layoffs, my FX lead was in France, so I worked with her from 9 to noon our time, and then she was like, my day's over, and everyone who asked me for FX updates, I was just like, I'll tell you tomorrow morning. Like, you can't even do that on fucking Earth.
Exactly. You'll get more of that as you move up with us too.
I'm aware. I'm not worried. I've got plenty of experience doing that shit.
I mean, when we were kids, if you were outside when your friend called asking if you wanted to come over, it was like, that's just lost, that comm is just lost.
The team that I work with starts at my 9 p.m, so it's like we're about to start now. Exactly.
So Ibrahim von Holtzman, born on Liesco 2 in the year 7593.
Ibrahim, sorry, wait, say the name one more time.
We're just going to call him Holtzman throughout this
okay,
whole
Holtzman. Oh, got it.
He was born
the Holtzman Drive. Yes, it's in the movie.
Yeah, it's not called the Holtzman Drive in Herbert's writing, but we are going to talk about all of his discoveries. He was born the son of the planetary governor and was known as a speed freak right up until 75-65 before Guild, when he was nearly killed in a thopter racing accident. That is 28 years old for anyone trying to quickly do the math.
The thopters, is that the dragonfly helicopter?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's an ornithopter.
Think about it as a motorcycle. Helicopters are motorcycles. Planes are cars, right?
Yeah. One thing that's really cool in the movies is
planes are trains, really.
Shut the fuck up. No, they're not.
Someone came to me today.
Cable them together.
Someone came to me today and they said, send me a meme today and they said, why do we call airports airports? And why don't we call them, plane stations? Because that's what they are. You go to a train, you get onto it. It's a train station.
The ship goes into a port.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a ship goes into a port, I guess. Yeah, but you could call it a
port. That's another name for a garage.
Plane station, boat station. I don't know.
I think trains are the ones that are off here.
Yeah,
they're the ones desync.
Yeah, you're right.
You got carports, airports.
People are really into trains. I don't know. Anyways, there's the helicopters that are dragonflies. It's so cool how they like fly like a dragonfly, and then to gain speed, they just drop their wings. So they use gravity and then put the wings out at the last second to like catch themselves. Yeah. And
those things are so fucking cool.
It's like that problem with I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you drop a ball down a ramp, and there's one that's a straight ramp and there's one that's like a curvy ramp that has multiple hills, and the ball on the multiple hills gets down first, and you think, oh no, it would be the straightest way would get you there, but no, it's the fast acceleration right from the beginning will get you there faster. So yeah, thinking of the way that they dip and dive in those thornicopters is very cool.
Reminds me, while we're off track, sorry, one time, the last time I went skiing, which is, yes, Jamie, before my house burned down, I lost my Transformers.
All the time from the last time you went skiing until now is après ski. You ever thought about that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. We should reset the calendars. You're right. I was on the moguls, which are little like lumpy hills, right? And my dad was going straight. And I ended up going too fast on the moguls, losing both my ski poles and taking my dad out, catching him out. Like I catch him. So like he and I did the real life experiment. At some point, he got so mad at me because at first he thought he had stabbed me in the chest with one of his ski poles, which is residual trauma from when he let me handle a screwdriver and I stabbed myself in the throat.
Yeah. Famously. I think your example is just Peter bad at skiing more than what I was trying to say.
It's the exact same experiment. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, but you specifically said you crashed into your dad, so he did get down first. Like he was ahead of you.
And you're a kid. You're a kid. Your dad's probably heavier than you. You're smaller. This is not the exact same experiment. Yeah.
If you put a tiny boy on like a squiggly ramp.
On the Price is Right, the Yodeler, you put that track on backwards, put a little boy on it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Holtzman, Daredevil, 28 years old, son of the planetary governor, nearly killed in a thopter racing accident.
Right.
Luckily for him, he was the son of the planetary governor, right? Holtzman would be one of the very first people to undergo a complete brain transplant. Excuse me. Here's a quote from the Dune Encyclopedia. This is when I read this paragraph. I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do the episode on for sure.
Okay.
His brain was placed in a prototype axolotl tank and wired into a large host computer with an unprogrammed personality blank. On the assumption that Holtzman would imprint his own personality onto the machine. The process was marred by an induced psychosis. Afterwards, Holtzman suffered from intense paranoia and refused treatment. Since Holtzman's was the first brain transplant ever performed, the extent of his powers was not fully understood. So Holtzman, after being nearly killed in a flying motorcycle accident, had his brain taken out and placed into an axolotl tank, then cabled up to a computer.
So you don't want to add too much iodine to the brain tank, or else it'll get rid of its gills and drown in there.
Right?
Yeah, I was like, I don't even need to draw anything this week. I can just like move out of the way and point at the axolotl tank that I have right here, and just like, I'll just put some brains in it.
Right?
Why is it called an axolotl tank? Is it a regeneration thing?
I think it's just a tank, it's a prototype tank to keep axolotls alive, and if you can keep an axolotl alive, you can keep a brain alive.
I'm using fucking NDG tap water, dude. I don't think I can put a brain in there.
It's like when you lose a tooth, you put it in milk. When you lose a brain, you put it in axolotl water.
Yeah, exactly. I just read that. I thought it was so silly.
That's like way too specifically made for this podcast,
right?
It's odd that it's like 59 years later. It's just like there's gonna be three guys who's gonna really find this very funny.
That's interesting that like his feelings afterwards too, right? Like imagine just the physical rejection of an organ is one thing, but the mental rejection of an organ, not feeling a match between what you think and what you feel completely
at all, right? Yeah,
it would be so weird.
It'd be very and it is going to have an impact on him, right? Does have an impact on your mental capacity to not be a neurotic freak, it turns out. The quote continues. When Holtzman tapped into the computerized production network and ordered the construction of a peculiar style of spaceship under the guise of the chief engineer of House Holtzman, no one noticed. Similarly, when release papers were presented to the hospital, he was discharged without a second thought. Finally, when the assembly that was Holtzman was placed aboard the odd new ship and connected directly to its systems, no one thought it odd that takeoff clearances arrived at the tower so promptly, or that the scheduling comp fed Holtzman into the takeoff line ahead of other waiting ships. Holtzman has the ability to surf the web, TM, using just his brain. He promptly signs some orders to free himself from the hospital, get himself a fancy new spaceship. He has himself hooked directly into it, and he's like, cool, I'm out of here, guys. As a brain in an axolotl tank. The good ship Holtzman, now as much man as machine, promptly left orbit, engaged its faster than light, and parked itself in the perihelion orbit of a comet.
I definitely have the brain poison of having an axolotl tank at home, of that I am now imagining like one of those like closed face mask, like fighter pilot helmets, just in an aquarium, strapped in the front seat of a spaceship.
Yeah, with an open top, like they gotta be careful when it's sloshing because they're going from light speed to back. Like, slow down. Whoop, whoop.
All his aquarium gravel is like, whoa.
Yeah, all
his one little stick to keep him happy falls down.
Yeah, the suction cup leaf falls off the side. A little red light starts going off.
So he's hanging out in the orbit of a comet, specifically the perihelion, which is the point in an orbit that is always nearest to the sun. So he's kind of like in the orbit of a comet, but he's timed his orbit so that he's always facing the sun because he's powered by solar panels. From here, he would periodically intercept transmissions from his home planet of Liesco and decrypt them for some light reading. It's said that he retained some of his personality, or at least his human nature, in this newfound form, but obviously his capacity for quick maths was much greater. The encyclopedia actually says that he was capable of thinking 10 times faster. I'll attribute that to computers being really big and slow when Herbert wrote this.
Oh, yeah, of course. Our AI God King. Exactly. Our AI God King has 256 bytes of RAM. It's just like, he's the smartest man alive.
Herbert writing this in like, I don't know, the late 70s or 80s and just being like, well, how fast could a computer get? Maybe even 8, 9, 10 times as fast as a human brain.
They hadn't even gone to the moon yet, right? Wow.
That's true.
No, this is after
in 65 they hadn't.
Yeah, he wrote the encyclopedia after 4 books, so I think this late 70s, maybe early 80s that he wrote who knows when he wrote this article, honestly. Because again, it was a compilation of a bunch of articles that his friend had kind of inherited from him, they'd collaborated together on stuff before, who put these all together. So he might have written this in 1965. Who knows? And it's just like an old article that got put into the encyclopedia.
Right. It's probably a mix, yeah, exactly, like from different years.
So Lowboy's canon is probably a trillion times faster thinking once you put your brain in the axolotl tank that is the singularity.
Yeah.
when he had been fully human,
predating the internet, just being like, we can think so fast.
Yeah, right.
I've seen Peter's axolotls. There's no like exponential thinking going on in there.
Oh, they're very dim. Yeah.
They just stay still and they look mildly like penises.
So when Holtzman had been fully human, before his accident, he had been a mathematical genius and one obsessed with the suspensor nullification effect, which is sci-fi jargon for faster than light travel in the Dune universe.
Cool.
When you activate the suspensor nullification effect, you can travel faster than the speed of light.
Okay.
You see, the suspensor nullification effect led to a new era for mankind, one that saw humans proliferate across the galaxy, conquering innumerable worlds. In Herbert's Appendix 2, The Religion of Dune, the majority of the appendix is actually dedicated to the impact of interstellar travel on religion. So it goes into the various religions, the Orange Catholics, things like that. But by far, it's like a page and a half of like the different religions and like the impact of religion in the Dune universe. And then it's like 7 pages of the impact space travel had on religion, essentially.
It would, though, right?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
That's like a well-known thing. And I think it probably did at the time. This is like a thing we probably have to like fact check of just like we have fundamentalists who would like to stop us from making literally any kind of progress at any point ever in time, every single day that we're currently alive. When Kennedy wanted to go to the moon, I guarantee that was just like, well, you can't go to heaven and touch the face of God, dude. Like,
yeah. So
right.
I have a quote for you, and it's going to end with a pretty direct call out to that.
Okay.
Mankind's
quote
movement,
JFK.
Mankind's movement throughout deep space placed a unique stamp on religion during the 110 centuries that preceded the Butlerian Jihad. Immediately, space gave a different flavor and sense to ideas of creation. That difference is seen even in the highest religious achievements of the period. All through religion, the feeling of the sacred was touched by anarchy from the outer dark. It was as though Jupiter in all his descendant forms retreated into the maternal darkness to be superseded by a female eminence filled with ambiguity and with the face of many terrors. During this period, it was said that Genesis was reinterpreted, permitting God to say, increase and multiply, and fill the universe, and subdue it, and rule over all manner of strange beasts and living creatures in the infinite airs, on the infinite earths, and beneath them. So that's literally just a paragraph. There's a word for it.
Yeah.
There's a Bible word for it. For a paragraph from Genesis, a verse from Genesis, a passage from Genesis, rewritten so that it doesn't say fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fish and the birds. Instead, it says fill the universe.
Man's seed spread through the universe like the Milky Way.
Yeah, exactly. Let man come into alien, said God.
That's a pretty cool line, God. Good one, God.
Let this man come into aliens. Yeah. Thank you, God.
If a man lay with another man, that's bad, but fuck all the alien, that cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he skipped one sexuality.
So I guess a little aside for people who haven't read the books, I don't think it comes up. It's maybe mentioned in the movies, Catholicism, but I can't remember the first one at all.
No, the movies which have been criticized for this are very much Islam, but they control F'd out all the Islam in the films to like release it in a modern in a post 9/11 context, I guess. They don't. The manipulative cabal of women, the Bene Gesserit, are very much, at least from a Canadian perspective, like those psychotic nuns who ran like the native kidnapping churches that we had here, right? Which I cannot remember the official name of. But Canada had residential schools. Yeah, Canada had a bunch of like insane shit that they just like collaborated with the Catholic Church. They would take native kids away from their families, move them generally to a different province to make sure they were far, and then psychologically and in a lot of cases physically abuse them. The Bene Gesserit remind me very much of residential school nuns more than anything. Okay. Yeah. So and also like the Crusades and all that shit is very Catholic as well. So
yeah. So I want
to talk a little bit about it. Also in the movie, like the only religion that I saw was in the second one is whenever you're and not a big spoiler. It's Paul shows up amongst I want to say the people of the sand again. The
Fremen. The South has like a different religion, right?
Yeah, so the South has one religion, the North has another. Some people are like, he's the prophet, we should worship him now. And they're kind of cringe in a certain way because they're like, if he just like even trips on his own feet, they're like, the prophet did it, oh my god.
Lisan al-gaib.
Yeah, exactly. It's how it was meant to be. But then the other people are like, well, no, this wouldn't be the prophet. This guy's like, he's a betrayer or whatever. And there's kind of the both sides of it, of like always doubting, that kind of sucks, but just worshiping for no reason also super sucks too.
Northern Arrakis woke, Southern Arrakis broke is kind of the division in the film. It kind of simplifies it a little bit.
But they both suck. Yeah.
I mean, the Southern Arrakis,
they're both ruled.
The Iraqians, I guess, are correct in the end, though.
The Fremen, we've said it several times.
The Fremen over time, but there's two different factions in the film at the very least.
The Northern Fremen, there's a small population of them, a small population of warriors in the north, and then all of the city people are in the south.
That's the same as in the books, if I recall correctly. So
yeah.
So despite there being an alternate calendar and alternate Earth/Terra, there is Catholicism in Dune. They're called Orange Catholics. They study the Orange Catholic Bible, which at various points was decreed as heretical. I'm not going to get too much into it, but like there's a point on the timeline not so far from where we are right now. I think in the future from where we are in our story with Holtzman, the Orange Catholic Bible will be printed by these people. It's essentially like Jesus version or whatever, right? Like,
the Orange Order is a real thing in Ireland.
What if Jesus
notoriously
was
Catholic? Yeah.
dangerously cheesy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me I need that spice, dude.
Can we get Chester Cheeto rights to Chester Cheeto?
We need a new name, like Jester Jesus. I don't know. No, that's too funny.
Chester Cheeto. So I guess it means Space Jesus is canon. Herbert, to your point, Peter, Herbert even described the Bene Gesserit, as female Jesuits, likely comparing them to the aunts that oversaw his education as a child. So you saying they remind you of the Jesuits, they're straight up by their creator said, they're female Jesuits.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, the abusive nun thing is throughout history in every context correct, but as a Canadian, I know that we did specifically evil things with them, and I know the Bene Gesserit made up the prophet stuff 1,000 years before the film came out, just waiting for Paul Atreides to be bred into existence.
In the book, you have to stick your hand in a box that gives you unimaginable pain, and they hold a needle to your neck that if you struggle, it'll kill you. In real life, they beat your hands with rulers, and if you tell your parents, they'll kill you. So,
exactly.
Yeah. And more than beat your hands with ruler, it turns out. So for however big an impact FTL travel would have on the Orange Catholics, it still has its own problems. Here's a quote from the encyclopedia. The suspensor nullification effect was discovered by scientists in the First Empire 10 centuries after the First Empire ventured from the surface of Terra. It took about a century of experimentation and guesswork before Imperial navigators learned how to operate the suspensor nullification effect field with any degree of certainty. The delay was so long mainly because the effect was considered to be an Imperial secret and jealously guarded. Eventually, the secret was leaked, and House Ceres and its most powerful and influential allies began a program of exploration and exploitation greater than any other since the beginning of the Empire. House Ceres had no way of knowing it, of course, but this use of the suspensor nullification device doomed the First Empire, which collapsed after 3,000 years of continuous rule that had seen Terra develop from iron tools to space travel. The centrality crucial to Imperial administration was impossible to maintain when there was no quick method of communication from one end of the Empire to the other, and until the discovery of Holtzman waves, the only way to send a message was to send a ship, which made for impossibly expensive administrative costs and diffused the power of the Emperor irreparably.
Okay. So, if we're going to do some math here, because I, for some reason, do want to kind of lock it down to, I understand it's alt-Earth. The history of Dune is, I guess, because the calendar breaks and then goes on for 10 millennia into where we meet up with Paul Atreides, who's a teenager at this point.
Yeah.
It's 20 or 30,000 years. It's so far in the future, nothing matters, right?
Yeah, it's very long.
So it's funny that they could only send word by ship before then. It's like the equivalent of sending mail by horse. The Fremen are coming. The Fremen are coming.
I mean, straight up. So early civilization on Terra. So before the Roman Empire was 19,000 before Guild, and the latest stage is 15,000, which is the
Guild.
After Guild, exactly.
So 34 total.
34,000, yeah. From humans invent animal husbandry to when this book was published, listing all these things in it, right?
Yeah. Fertile Crescent to the Spice Wars is 34-ish thousand years.
Exactly.
So long, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, we've talked before about silly fantasy and sci-fi made up numbers that just have no context in real life. So House Ceres, after they kind of stole the or didn't steal, but like got access to Imperial secrets, they, for our purposes, we'll call them the first Empire of Dune. That's obviously not true because I just said they basically took that crown from the other empire that already existed. This is not to be confused with the empire propped up by the Sardaukar in the Dune books or the Dune movies. That belongs to House Corina. Would not come for thousands more years.
Right. Okay.
So it's to this empire-breaking problem that Holtzman would set his cyborg mind to. It said that our Intel-inspired Megamind learned more about it in the 9 years he contemplated it than the best minds of the previous 50 centuries.
For that 9 years, the water is just like bubbling in the tank. It's going so hot in there, He's working hard.
But not even like a kettle, like an aquarium filter, like the little delicate bubbles.
What would come to be known as the Holtzman effect would eventually have two major updates to the already vitally important interstellar travel, shielding devices, and FTL communications, though Holtzman had only discovered FTL comms so far. So, just a quick recap. Boy, son of planetary governor, motorcycle accident, brain taken out, put in axolotl tank. He attaches himself to a ship, goes into orbit around a comet, which is orbiting the star of the system, and he decides to spend all his time thinking about this problem of there's no such thing as FTL communication. So he is now, after 9 years in orbit around the star, around this comet, has discovered the key to interstellar faster than light communication.
Which is like a miracle. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. This changes the game for sure, because I will remind you guys, we're in a period called the era or the age of 10,000 emperors, because the last empire fractured because they couldn't keep up with comms across the board, and now he has solved that problem. So now there's an opening for people to
take over the universe.
Well, there's just going to be a guy wearing like a straw hat, no shirt, and suspenders, with a regular pitchfork that might have like LEDs on it, just like shoveling hay into the back of a pickup. And then the 1,000-year-old Nokia phone that he's inherited through his generations, he gets a text message for the first time when they finally got the Holtzman drive up.
So one-dimensional incarnations of the Holtzman effect, also called Holtzman waves, is the only known method for interstellar communications, and is the only method available for communicating with a ship in transit. So for ships that are already traveling at faster than light speeds, you have to use faster than light communication methods to contact them.
Well, yeah, because otherwise the little pixely envelope would be just be chasing after the ship and only arrive once it stops, right?
Wait. You can't be moving in a faster than light ship.
No, you can now. You can now. You couldn't previously. So now that he has discovered faster than light communications, now you can. It used to be like a ship would be in hyperspace for whatever, let's say years, right? Traveling across the galaxy. And it's like once they're locked into traveling at those speeds, they're locked in. If plans change in those years that they're traveling, too bad. They're on their way. They're not going to get your message, kind of thing. But now that's changed. So now you can have somebody
speed limit. There's a faster than faster light.
Exactly.
So it can catch up to the butt. Okay, I understand.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm glad you make it a butt for yourself. Really make it.
It's the butt. It catches up to the butt of the ship. Everything has a butt if you look at it right.
That's true. I gotta admit that's true.
Bad guy in Dune 2, spoilers, has a fat ornithopter. That's one of my favorite details they added to the movies. Is the fat guy has a fat helicopter.
Nice. And I bet you the back of his head looks like a butt too.
Yeah, it's still the hot dog thing, honestly.
Oh yeah.
So this near decade that Holtzman spent in orbit around a comet pondering this math problem, he was also growing increasingly paranoid. He imagined that the people of Liesco 2 were after him, seeking out his ship in the infinite dark. When he finally discovered Holtzman wave communication, he sent a series of messages out into the system reminding his would-be persecutors that he was alive while not revealing his position. So he develops this new means of communication, then is instantly just like, I'm still alive, you motherfuckers never got me. And people are just like, are you getting this message? This guy's saying he's like that brain in a jar that got up and stole a plane and then like faster than light traveled out of orbit of the planet 9 years ago.
That's awesome,
right?
That's fucking cool.
And he's just like, you guys still haven't found me yet. They're like, what the? Should we be looking for this guy?
There's a brain in a plane in a jar somewhere in the ocean. The stars
orbiting the perihelion of a comet around the star. The messages themselves were a series of strange accusations, paranoid ramblings. The next messages actually explained his discovery of Holtzman waves, and he routed them in a way so that they seemed to emit from the planetary mass of Liesco 2 itself, sending confusion among the ranks of his father's men. They did, however, manage to contain the message to within the ranks so that his father still controls this like very groundbreaking new technology, right?
Okay. The first thing he did was send like a copyright form to his dad at light speed and then start harassing everybody with weird text, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Just like dick pics of a brain and a brain stem in a jar. It's like holding the brain stem.
Wait, do you measure from the stem?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like from the first fold in the brain, and then from there is how I measure.
First wrinkle.
Yeah.
Same with my cock. I measure it from the first wrinkle.
It's wrinkles all the way up, baby.
So his father realizes, like, oh, my son is alive, and he has solved this incredibly complex problem, and he's
sending dick pics to all of my subjects.
Exactly.
I must stop this.
he is somewhere. He does realize that it's exciting that his son is alive, but that his son is not himself. Clearly, gotten too paranoid, and that if he is capable of discovering things like this, dangerous to who? Who knows? Like, is it dangerous that he knows this stuff and could uncover other very advanced things that could, threaten people, or is it dangerous to his rule that he might give these secrets to somebody else? We don't ever really find out.
Yeah, okay.
Quote, for the next 9 years, the governor's patrol searched the Liesco system. In 7556 BG, a patrol scout received a radar image of the ship now known as the Mad Holtzman. The scout was immediately joined by 2 cutters, and all 3 moved in for the kill. When Holtzman detected them, he sent a wave message to the 6 nearest inhabited systems saying, I have developed an instantaneous interstellar communication device which Governor Holtzman of Liesco is attempting to keep for himself. If you will rescue me, I will share this knowledge with you. The message, emanating from the primary of each system, was set to repeat while Holtzman tried to outrun the approaching patrol vessels. So
wait, one note on the name. The Mad Holtzman?
Yeah.
Couldn't go with the Headless Holtzman?
That is good. Fuck.
That's fucked up. It's fucked up. He's rolling in his grave right now.
Yeah, right.
Jesus.
Yeah, instead of jack-o'-lantern, he's just got a brain with like little angry eyes and little jaggy teeth carved in it.
Yeah,
right?
And he wears a fish tank on top and rides around on his on his ship.
So Holtzman realizes like the jig is up. He's been found. He's going to be shot down or taken in or something. So he sends out this message to other 6 other nearby inhabited systems, saying like, "Hey, I have this technology. I can share it with you as long as you come save me."
Now, how are any of these people to come get it? Where he's just like, "Hey, I invented this crazy thing that I can talk faster than light now. You, on the other hand, can't respond that quick. And in the next 80 years it takes you to come to rescue me from my dad. That would be great, right?"
I mean, there is faster than light travel, right? So they can't get there much quicker.
You couldn't send them an email. Excuse me.
Yeah, they couldn't reply back, but if they show up to the Liesco system, they still have to find him in the Liesco system, find these, Corsairs that are hunting him in the Liesco system.
Yeah.
And if he wanted, he could send the schematics via like outbound, right? And then they could learn and then send and be able to talk back, I guess.
Yeah, so the quote continues. Holtzman's ploy almost worked. His pursuers got off a couple of extremely long-range shots, ripping up the manipulators for a suspensor nullification field. The stern of Holtzman's ship blew apart, that's the butt, throwing it into an uncharted orbit and destroying its ability to maneuver. Holtzman was crippled, unable to use his drives. He was rapidly drifting out of the range where his solar panels would provide enough emergency power to keep him functioning. So Holtzman husbanded his little remaining power and sent a quick wave pulse to every inhabited star system he could get an accurate aim on, containing the data for the construction of Holtzman wave transmitters. Then, with his power beginning to flicker, he shut himself down and instituted a single wake-up procedure to bring him back up when, as he calculated, his new and highly eccentric orbit brought him back to the Liesco system in 1,862 years.
Cortana, take the lid off my aquarium in 1,082 years.
So yeah, exactly what you said, Jamie. I assume he didn't do it right off the bat because it's like that's his leverage too, right? Like he has a brain in a jar on a ship. He has limited ability to like build on himself further. He is kind of just like he has almost limitless thinking capacity, but his ability to actually do stuff is very limited. So I think he probably held it close to the chest with that in mind. And then when he was like shot out of the sky and dying, he's like, okay, well, here you go, everybody.
Yeah, like invents faster than light communication, but can't even eat a bowl of cereal.
Yeah, exactly. You can't eat a bowl of cereal.
He didn't think of how to get the spoon over the glass over the lid.
There's just milk streaks on the front.
After the break, we find out how his free long-distance phone plan would draw the galaxy into all-out war.
Oh no.
Welcome back. I hope your FTL communications from interstellar beings has left you with feelings of calm, complacency, and a desire to consume. We left off with Cyber Holtzman sending a signal out to everyone he could with plans for faster than light communication. This resulted in widespread and rapid development of Holtzman wave generators, which in turn leads to a period known as the Wars of Reunification. I mentioned earlier that we were in a period known as the Age of 10,000 Emperors. This was the period after House Ceres had lost its grasp on the galaxy. As the name suggests, this had various planets looking out for themselves, living in their own reaches while trading amongst each other, but always vying for more control.
Okay. War of Reunification is a nice name for I'm gonna take over the whole universe.
Yeah, bro, like, dude, stop invading me, bro. I'm just reunifying us. It's unity, dude.
It reminds me of like Helldivers of like organized democracy or managed democracy. Yeah. Also, War of Reunification acronym, just war.
Oh.
In my head, because it's WOR, I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
but they say it the exact same way.
It sounds the same, yeah.
War.
The discovery of Holtzman Wave suddenly presents an opportunity to grasp this extra power that everyone's trying to get. The ability to call rapid reinforcements, to redirect ships already in hyperspace. All this stuff means that coordinated efforts at running a galactic empire was suddenly feasible when it never had been before.
Of course, yeah.
By the time Holtzman completed his first orbit back into operational range in 5694 BG, almost 2,000 years later, the Wars of Reunification had been raging for almost that whole time. So for almost 2 millennia, these wars in the galaxy are going on.
Come and help me! I hope nothing goes wrong. 2,000 years later.
Well, he had said, "Come and help me. I'll give you the secret to this," and then realized nobody could help him because he was being blown out of orbit. So he's like, "Okay, fuck it. You guys can all have it." Yeah. So intense were the wars that Holtzman did not reveal himself nor send any messages on his first trip back around the dark between space. He essentially got back, was like, "Oh damn, it's fucked up in here," and kind of just like laid quiet. He effected as many repairs as he could within the limits of his damaged servos, and listened in on some messages, got the goss. And committed himself to another 1,800 years of silence while he waited for his third turnabout.
Yeah, he did a T-related flyby, basically. It's just info.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like info gathering. Yeah. Also, I don't know if this is part of it or if you know, on his servos, does he have a rudimentary body? Because like obviously the axolotl tank and the fact that I have an aquarium is the image in my head, but in reality, I'm more thinking of a proper sci-fi cylinder with a brain in it. Kind of connected to like the piloting seat of a spaceship.
Yeah, like the servos, like the ship is him. He is hooked right into the ship.
But
so
he doesn't have a body at all to fix him.
No, okay. He is just. Well, I mean, that's Lowboy's canon. I'm pretty much giving you guys all the info that we get out of the encyclopedia. But to me, it seems pretty clear that he was just hooked up to the ship. So like the ship is doing its best to repair itself. But it has limited ability to do so, given how much damage it has taken.
The ship has like a little Canada arm that puts the fish flakes in for him, and then goes
and it's got like the flat tool you use to like put grout into tiles. It's like trying to repair the inside of itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he has and he has little shrimp inside there that keep everything clean, like
little brain flakes that just like sink down and land vertically in the folds and just, like, slide in like Pop-Tarts.
Holtzman, you okay? You barely touched your brain flakes.
Yeah, gives a whole new meaning to brain food.
Yeah.
I just been thinking.
Thinking about Holtzman effect and what else we could do with it.
Just at the table reading the back of the jar of brain flakes, just reading the ingredients for the 30,000th time because he's been in orbit for so long.
Like there's a milk carton next to it. It's like, have you seen my son? And it's just like his brain in a jar, essentially.
That's so funny. I wrote that down as one of the arts like 20 minutes ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, great minds. So he commits himself to another 1,800 years. He can't change his orbit. He's leaving the system, but still kind of orbiting back towards this star.
Right, his thrusters are fucked, but he's still subjected to the gravity of the star.
Yeah, like Halley's Comet comes by like every 86 years. I don't know if it leaves our solar system. I doubt it. There was that like one that came by a few years ago, the cigar-shaped asteroid, which like had come in. Or whatever. So he's essentially like leaving the system altogether into the void of space where surely no one will ever find him. And then showing back up, careening through it for a limited amount of time where he can make contact and have solar power. And then he's back into the dark where he's on standby mode until he comes back.
Okay.
So by the cigar-shaped asteroid, the butt would be the burning part because that's where the trail is, right? Or is it flying butt first?
I do imagine a cigar flying forwards, like cherry as the lead. Bow.
Okay.
I would say I suck on the butt when I smoke a cigar.
Yeah, because you put a butt out whenever you're done a cigar, right?
Yeah.
So I think Ethan's right on that one. Yeah.
Also, fun fact about comets: the trail does not go behind them; it always just goes away from the star that they're near.
Oh. Yeah. Something I learned that I wanted to tell Peter while we were at Dune, watching them enter the atmosphere.
Just in the movie, they're like, "Psst, "Hey, Pete,
yeah,
the cigar has a butt."
Yeah. No, someone told me this in Helldivers, and I'm not sure if it's true, but it's not friction that's causing the trail or the fire coming off as you're entering the atmosphere. It's the compression of the air in front that's making all that fire happen.
Yeah, air can't move out of the way, can't move out of its own way fast enough.
So it's like compressing it to the point of combustion.
It's friction.
Yeah.
It's friction against.
No, not friction.
It's stuck in front of you, I think.
No, not friction.
It's compression. You said not friction. I don't know.
Not friction. It's compression.
I'm not a scientist. I can tell you what a perihelion is, but that's because I looked it up today.
Wait, what's a what now?
The perihelion is where Holtzman was orbiting around the comet, which is the point in an orbit that is nearest the star.
Yeah, you see the perihelion on that Halley's Comet? Hey, baby.
By the time Holtzman had made his way back around again, so the second time back around, his third time in this system.
Yeah, it's been 3,600 years. I'm sure they've resolved and stopped having constant holy wars.
Yeah, the reunification wars had finally ended. They ended about 2,500 years of violence, so about 500 years after he left the system. They did end. They had finally been put to rest by Ladislaus the Great, who installed what he called the Empire of 10,000 Worlds. So it worked. Okay. Reunification happened.
Hell yeah.
Detecting no malevolent activity in the system when he comes back into power range, Holtzman sends a brief message to his old home planet. Unbeknownst to him, his father's legacy had crumbled to dust, and Liesco 2 was now a prison world administered only by a few orbital computers.
Hello, England? England, is that you? It's Australia now, mate. You're like, prison world.
The prison world was kept primitive deliberately, meaning the prisoners sent there could not, have. There's no rockets on the prison planet. There's no interstellar telephones on the prison planet. It is just
a good idea, really.
Right? It's Australia.
Yeah, there's no rockets on Australia. There's no cell phones.
There's a band called Alex Jones Prison Planet, and it's just Alex Jones ranting over metal music. So if anyone wants that, that's there.
In this day and age, I'm like, if it's satire, extremely cool. If it's not, damn,
it was
must
long.
Be,
right? I think it is satire.
It's
hard to say.
Irony's a circle. Irony's a circle. Exactly. At one point, if you're satire long enough, you might as well just do the thing.
Exactly. The left satirizes it. The right thinks it's funny and then thinks it's genuine and then co-ops it. And the left's just there like, fuck.
Yeah, no, it's part of this.
Naturally, on receiving advanced radio comms, which were using Holtzman waves on the planet, there's a few alarms triggered. From the satellite prison guards in charge of keeping the prisoners planet side, right?
Right.
So you have these satellites which are just orbiting the planet, doing bare maintenance to keep an eye on things.
Yeah, one fat guy in the satellite eating donuts the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just socks up on the desk, right?
Yeah.
And he has a fatter satellite, like that guy had a fatter dragonfly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, over the past 3,000 years, we've had to make progressively more obese satellites for our fattening cops.
Yeah. It's like International Space Station has the Canada arm, which is like a normal arm. He has one of those things that you like press the lever.
Oh, it's Canada arm, but it's got like a grabber
on the
like dollar store.
That people use when they can't reach things from out of their little scooters.
You got like rocket ships are launched in mobility scooters first. Is like the first. It's like mobility scooter one away. Like it like breaks off.
Yeah, he's like leaned back in his chair, feet up on the desk. He's got like two buttons next to each other, like feed prison population and exterminate planet. He's there, like whacking the console with his dinosaur grabber, trying to.
You know, it's like a little Shai Hulud, like a Dune worm grabber is the reference, right? But he's got like a piece of tape over the exterminate planet one, so the grabber just bounces off back on.
Smart, yeah.
Which orbitably drops prison flakes from like giant shakers in orbit, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, which they just burn up on entry.
Yeah.
From all the pressure.
There's just like flakes of fish food, like an asteroid, just like
skinny me talking to a really skinny Peter. You know, it's actually the compression that makes them burn up and not
so naturally on this planet where they're just watching fish flakes kind of rain fire from the sky, this advanced bomb happens and some systems are triggered. The nearby planetary system in charge of running the prison sends technicians to locate the transmitter that the prisoners of Liesco had apparently built and to report on it.
Okay.
So another star system is managing, like a capital planet on another star system is managing Liesco 2 as a prison. So they send somebody out to check it out. You know, they send
contraband Liesco receivers, like just a pile of dirt with coat hangers in it. Yeah. Just like take it away from them.
Exactly. Holtzman, sitting in the dark of space with his mostly broken ship, overheard all of these communications and, still overwhelmingly paranoid, decided that they were coming for him. So he drops his findings for the planar Holtzman effect. Again, the FTL communication is the point Holtzman effect, one-dimensional. Okay. He drops the two-dimensional planar Holtzman effect and then drops back into his own little hypersleep to leave for another 1,800 years.
Okay.
The technicians on Liesco who received the transmission, this second transmission, were understandably flabbergasted by the realization. Holtzman, who was thought long dead, after he had dropped the knowledge for the Holtzman wave and been shot to all hell by his father's men, had just sent them a text being like, "Oh yeah, by the way, here's the thing for the next one."
That'd be crazy. Yeah, like imagine like new Einstein drops in 100 years, you know, and everyone's like, "You've been dead for fucking ever, man!" Like,
right? Yeah,
how'd you just? Yeah,
E equals MC cubed, guys.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Or Larry hot dogs. What if you made hot dog 2?
Oh shit, dude.
Oh no, it's like a ring.
Well, the prison guards would get all confused with their donuts.
Yeah, hot dog 3. No one could understand the hot dog that folds in upon itself. Yeah, you know,
they just
Tessa hot dog.
They just took they took the top of Baron Harkonnen's head and just like cut it into rings, right?
Yeah,
to make the hot dog ring.
Baron.
So first, the technicians suspect that it's a boy in a balloon, a hoax. But when they run diagnostics on the orbital computers, they can find no evidence that this transmission was not genuine. They did send it back home to be like, "Hey, we got this text, kind of weird." So at the same time, the planetary government in charge of Liesco turns over the recordings to experts for their analysis. One, a historian, was able to correctly identify that the speech patterns matched the archaic language spoken during the Great Dark Ages when Holtzman had still been fully human.
Oh, that's like true. English would have completely changed. Yeah.
Beowulf. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Another was the chief engineer of House Varric, who was tasked with checking the maths. Of course, he found nothing inconsistent in the theories and mechanisms described, and so he followed the steps to generate a node for this planar effect. This is going to prompt the only art that I have for you guys here.
You go to sleep for like almost 2,000 years, come out, beat all the current day scientists, go back to sleep.
Right? Yeah.
When I am resummoned in, I guess I'm doing very quick math here, almost 5,000 years, I hope it is me wearing a painter's outfit with far too many buttons, and I am just wielding a knife.
Yeah.
Wielding a knife with a light on your belt.
That's the shield you were talking about, right?
Exactly. Here's the quote. He succeeded. The first manufactured shield was a simple flat effect, about a meter in diameter, emitting radiation in all but the long radio frequencies. Staven did not realize what he had, though, until he accidentally dropped a screwdriver into the field and saw it gently lowered through the plane of the effect. Staven reported at once that whatever these messages were, they were no hoax. He later took the field apparatus into the courtyard to test its resistance to a variety of missiles of increasing power, and at last, a workman's cutting laser. Thus, as his last discovery, he learned that the planar effect did not mix well with coherent light.
Yeah, I've heard this. This is like the explanation as to why they're having knife fights 30,000 years in the future, is because the protective shields they use react in like they explode if they're hit with atoms, basically. So if they're hit with light.
Yeah.
If only Peter lived in the future and he had one of those belts on, so when he was running with the screwdriver, it just bounced right off his neck.
Yeah. Oh no, the slow blade penetrates the shield. I fell on top of it, so it probably still would have gotten me.
Well, you would have probably bounced off.
I would have got that neat vibrating effect at least.
Oh yeah.
So shields in Dune can be calibrated to permit or deny matter from passing through them, depending on the velocity of the matter. This is important, as if it's calibrated too weakly, bullets will still get you, but if it's calibrated too strong, you'll suffocate, as gases cannot pass through it.
I was going to say, you couldn't breathe. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
So for many shield generators, and that's kind of what you're referencing, Pete, in like the beginning of the first book and the first movie as well, there's a scene where like Duncan Idaho is instructing Paul Atreides on that, the slow knife pierces the shield or whatever, and it's like, it's all about like, if you just like push long and slow and hard enough, you will get through a shield, because it has to be calibrated to let air through, and you basically just go as slow as air, and you can still stab somebody.
You can see them calibrate before fights too. Before fights, they jack up their belt before they go in.
Yeah. Exactly.
And in the film as well, and at least in the second one, a lot of the Harkonnen goons use laser guns, but they like, no, fuck, stop when they turn their shields on. And which is really cool. Okay.
So we'll touch that. So for many shield generators made to protect cities, they tend to be much stronger, as the city will have a life support system built in to recycle air and prevent asphyxiation, right? So if you make them big enough, you can have an ecosystem within a shield that you don't have to worry about asphyxiation so much. So
cool. Okay.
The big ones built to protect ships or to protect cities or whatever can be much stronger and much more. You can't slow knife a city.
The guy who betrays the Atreides in the first movie, which I watched the day before we went and saw Dune 2, does say that he turned the city's shields off. I always thought it was the walls that they raised to just keep sand out. But no, they had a dome or something over it.
That's to keep sand and the worms out, right?
Yeah.
Worms, I mean, fun fact, worms don't like shields. I don't know if it's ever brought up. It must be brought up in the movies at some point, but like,
they don't say it.
You don't use your shield in the desert because it draws the worms.
Yes, they do say it in the first movie. That's true.
They do?
Yeah, okay. It drives them crazy. Yeah, it drives them crazy is what the science lady says.
One of my favorite things to come out of Dune, meme-wise, is because you know how they like pound the sand in a rhythm, and that'll bring worms closer? People would put their cats under blankets and pound and then watch the cat come out from under the blanket. It's very cute. Yeah.
So as Staven, the engineer for House Varric, would learn, hitting a shield with a las gun causes it to undergo subatomic fusion and a prompt and devastating nuclear explosion. So it's not just an explosion, it is a nuclear explosion. It is very big and very bad if you shoot a shield with a laser.
Oops.
That should be a good like final move though, like Duncan Idaho having his final stand, dude. Right at the end, yep, I'm a nuke now.
I mean, he would have killed Jessica and Paul, because he was in the hallway, right?
That's true. That's true. You got to get a little bit of a run and start on a nuke.
Yeah.
The warden of the prison planet, Liesco, sent a wave transmission to the system where Holtzman was nearing the end of his active period, demanding more information. So again, he like. Holtzman has said, like, has dropped. Here's the planar Holtzman effect. Essentially, this is how it works. This engineer follows the schematics, figures out how to make a small shield generator, basically. But again, it's to one group of people. Like this one house has access to this now.
Wow. That shield generator, if you think about all the games we play that have the health bar and the shield bar, and the shield bar probably came from this series, right? Yeah.
Halo.
Halo, Power World.
The rest.
Fortnite.
Everything. Yeah, there's so many where shield, or I guess some use armor, but still, same idea. Block bullets.
Your Holtzman slurp, as the item is called in Fortnite, as I understand it.
The mushrooms in Mario are called Holtzman mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Whenever I remember that part when Paul Atreides got shot and then he was shrunk to half his size and then ran out the little ventilation pipe.
So this warden of the prison planet, who now has access to this, game-changing information, decides to send the person who gifted him this and demands more information. In response, Holtzman broadcast a brief biography of himself and promised to return in another 1,862 years, where he noted that he hoped his reception would be more cordial. He then sent the information for the shield generators to all systems within range and powered down. So again, it's just like people pressing him for too much information, that he's just like, okay, fuck you, and sends it to everybody. And
right, yeah.
So he sends it to a wide range. Once more, his discovery shook the worlds that gained control of them early on, as they were suddenly able to wage an entirely new kind of war with these new tools in their arsenal.
Dude, he should come out with like a third one, and if he comes out the third time and he doesn't like the way that he's being he should put out a troll one that seems good at first, but it'll just destroy all of humanity like on the back end. I feel like even just putting this big of technology out is it probably kills a certain amount of people, saves a certain amount of people, huge outstretching consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but he also
more
can't
than
plan
anything.
because if he's going to be it's like I will be back in 1800 years, is just I hope there's civilization to come back to, right? It's so long.
Yeah. It would suck to come back and it's just a dark galaxy too, right?
Oh yeah, Alexa, prepare the laser for my shield.
Yeah. You just got cavemen with energy shields, the slow club breaches the shield.
We'll get to that, Jamie. Finally, he left the range of his solar panels and went dark for another 2 millennia. When he made his fourth visit to the comet's perihelion in 1970, war was once more raging in the Liesco system. This one was called the Second Reunification War, which lets you know just how reunified the galaxy was after the last one.
Yeah.
That's funny.
However, Holtzman's status this time around was of a prophet returning to his flock. Because again, he said, I'll let you know, I'll return in 1,862 years. Right?
Okay, cool.
While he still did not reveal his location, he did make his return known. And this saw a 2-month ceasefire between both sides fighting over the system as they went to him for wisdom. So there's a ceasefire. It's oh, fuck, he's back. Let's put down we all got questions for the cyborg man that keeps dropping mad knowledge bombs every time he comes around.
That's really cool to think about. I think I would totally be a worshiper of someone who had shown more than once that they can just grasp the universe so much better.
You can't say that's not.
I'm not done yet. But wait. Imagine on year 1800, where there's been 20 generations since the last time they see them, and sure, he has a great track record, but is this even a real person?
Yeah.
And
okay, yeah. I would believe Jesus if Jesus showed up today. I'd be like, oh shit, yeah, that was real, cool. Right?
But it was 18. It was it might be 10 years from now, right? On the fucking poll on this.
I'm not a believer until he shows up, is what I'm saying.
Right, but Holtzman showed up. Jesus did show up just a long time ago.
Yeah, but that's what. So do you believe in Jesus?
So this is what I mean. This is why it would be so interesting, because it would be so easy to believe in Holtzman 10 years after he dropped those bomb facts.
Absolutely,
absolutely. But 1750 after he'd gone to sleep.
I see what you're saying.
It's oh, you're talking about Holtzman Protestants who don't want to pay indulgences to the Starman that they don't think is okay. Yeah,
I think I would be a Holtzman stan, but I don't think I could do it after a few generations.
No,
they have Holtzman Mormons and
I mean, they for sure have. I mean, so again, people do show up to him as a prophet. His name is Ibrahim. I'll remind you guys. So the name of a prophet in messianic religions, I think. Prophet. On this turn back, Holtzman published his unified theory. Probably the most exciting one if you're a fucking nerd at the time. The least exciting one for us because it's not a cool shield or something else. It links all the discoveries he'd made so far into a single hierarchy of phenomena known as the Holtzman effect. So again, this is kind of where he proves like, oh, they're all related to the suspensor nullification field, which is the 3D Holtzman effect, sometimes called Holtzman something, but more commonly called the suspensor nullification effect because it existed before Holtzman. He links his two discoveries to that previous discovery as well.
Okay.
Quote,
okay. He's unifying better than this war is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Quote, observers noted that his paranoia seemed to be less intense than before. Holtzman was now willing to discuss himself in precise terms. For the first time, he admitted that many had assumed. He was a machine overlaid with the mind of a man, even if, as he said, he did not feel like a machine. Apparently, Holtzman was getting lonely because he was quite voluble during the passage and gave his interviewers information on which he joked they could base their speculations for the next 18 centuries. Despite his newfound candor, Holtzman would not discuss what he called work in progress, though he did let everyone know that he was working on something groundbreaking. As he was leaving panel range, he stated several times that he needed only a few more days, then he would be able to, quote, see the end.
Oh, can I guess what it is? Groundbreaking in Dune? Worms.
You guys, I invented worms. I finally did it. Cyborg Man invents worm. All the papers in the galaxy, like Cyborg Prophet invents a worm.
Extra.
He had to figure out something to feed the fish in his tube, in his like thing that he lives in, right?
Yeah.
So
so tells everyone as he's kind of like leaving his range, like, I just need a few more days. I will give you guys like some big news, but he doesn't tell anybody what it is.
Last time he promised them big news, it took 1,800 years.
Yeah, right. Well, with this time he thinks he can get it done before he goes on his 1,800 year trip.
At this point, he hasn't told anybody where he is, right? Like they don't have a net on the thing he's been
he does not.
Okay.
He does not reveal his location at any point.
Okay, just like Jesus.
Exactly. Up and down that guy. He was still too paranoid to let anyone know his orbit, and he even added that to avoid any capture, he had a laser pointer directed at a shield generator that he'd blow the hell up at anyone found intruding too close to him.
Nice.
So to your point earlier, Jamie, yes, he has a laser. He has Alexa pointing a laser at his shield, just in case anyone tries to find him and tries to get too close to him.
It's a good last option to have. Like nobody wants to do that, but it's a good last option to have for this super smart guy, I think.
Quote, no one was sure that he was not lying, but Holtzman's cheerful statement that he had rigged a dead man booby trap reminded the listeners that they were dealing with a madman. So Holtzman left his panel range before making his final great discovery for the galaxy. He sent a final frustrated promise to, quote, finish this thing up first thing next time.
I really need a good 1,800 years nap. I'll get this thing first in the morning.
First thing in the morning, guys. Yeah. His fifth and final visit to the Liesco system occurred in 108 before Guild. He was greeted, perhaps to his surprise, by significant fanfare. So many pilgrims had arrived in the system that keeping them supplied caused severe logistical problems and even collisions between ships in interplanetary space, as impossible as that sounds. Huh. So the system is so chock full of pilgrims here to see Holtzman that they're literally like bumping into each other while trying to park.
You got to check your blind spot on a kilometer-long ship, right? Yeah. Like with a regular-sized car mirror.
Solar system that is 100 billion kilometers long. Like,
yeah. Like where normally you would have trouble like finding a planet where somebody else lived. Never mind bumping into these like needles in the haystack of space. But
if you just shot a rock in a straight line into space, the odds are astronomical that you would ever hit anything given infinite time. Like that rock is just never going to see anything ever again.
Yeah. Wow.
But you got one woman piloting a spaceship, and boom, she finds another spaceship to crash into.
Okay. All right, dude.
Now do your Chinese impression, Pete. Come on. You're doing it for us. You love
that was stuff. My first idea.
It's fine to punch down at women, of course.
I can't punch up at the Chinese, dude. That's ridiculous.
The fleet that arrived made no attempt to communicate with Holtzman. Merely they began an intense search to find him. After 3 days, they located his craft in the system, and they drew lots on who would have the honor of meeting Holtzman.
Are they just like spraying like lotus petals out the back of their spaceship onto his? Just like
pretty much.
Kind of ceremony.
Vienna Kellis, whose name would go down in history for this meeting, was bestowed the winning raffle.
And she got to name the sausages.
They should name them hot dogs.
Vienna sausages.
Oh.
The little ones.
Quote, after drawing near to him, she suited up and entered Holtzman's ship. Minutes thereafter, the entire fleet was bathed in the flash of a tremendous mass conversion reaction. This was, however, by design. You see, in 108 before Guild, humankind was just wrapping up what came to be called the Butlerian Jihad. All intelligent machines in the galaxy, at least the known ones, had already been destroyed. All except for one half-human machine in a lonely orbit outside the star system of Liesco. Oh. These pilgrims had not shown up to meet a hero, but to see one destroyed.
No.
We'll have to wait for another episode, however, to talk about the Butlerian Jihad. That's all for this one.
Oh, cool.
No way.
Yeah, right?
Dune is awesome, man. I didn't realize it went back that far. I thought, like, it's just going to get wormier and wormier the more I learned about it. But there wasn't even any worms, except for the ones I brought up.
And we can always rely on you for bringing up worms. That's one thing we've always said about you, Jimbo. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll definitely do more Dune. I think Pete and Jamie have both expressed some interest in doing it as well. There's
absolutely
more than enough for everyone, because again, I picked up the 700-page Dune encyclopedia, found one article, and said, cool, I'm doing the... I actually said I'm doing half an episode on this. First, I was going to do the Butlerian Jihad. Then I found this guy in the axolotl tank. I said, okay, I'm going to do this guy. And then I was like, okay, I'll do a half episode of each. And then I got to the end of it. I was like, well, that's too long. I can't cut this down to half an episode. It's all too good.
So we're going to be the Dune podcast for the next month, I guess.
Hell yeah, we're going to be doing it. Pete made that joke last week, I think.
I think I did. Dune 2 guys at once or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I said the Chinese thing.
I was
the meat in the middle. To Pete, I feel like. I credit Pete for doing the episodes that I myself researched.
Well, that's your problem specifically. It's just like being like Pete loves Magic the Gathering is a weird tumor that you have in your
any life. Chinese or women jokes. That's Pete.
That's Pete. Yeah. Anything offensive, we can chuck up to Pete.
Oh yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed the show, if this is your first episode or your 50th, please consider leaving us a review and telling your friends about the podcast. It really helps us grow, and we'll be doing more of this exact topic in the future. Pete, you got anything you want to talk about?
At Loreboys Podcast on Instagram. Give us a follow. Look at our pictures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to Loreboy James on Twitch. So twitch.tv/Loreboy James. I'll be playing probably Ratchet and Clank this week because I just bought that and that looks cool as hell. Tuesdays and Thursdays, every Tuesday, Thursday. And you might even get a random Monday or Sunday or something every once in a while. So drop a follow. Right now we have 100% of everyone who follows has a sub. So go drop me a follow. You'll probably get a free sub at this point.
Yeah,
so.
we're at capacity for subs right now. We need more followers.
We need more.
There's a link to that Twitch channel in the description of this episode.
Oh, thank you.
If you want to support the show, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/theloreboys, where give you guys access to all sorts of cool stuff, like bonus content where we just gushed about Cyberpunk DLC for like 20 minutes.
Talked about some Final Fantasy 7 as well.
Talked about Final Fantasy 7. We usually talk about a couple things from our lives, and we just kind of loose form chat and hang out, and it's a good time, and you can feel like you're one of the gang if you want to check it out. So there's previews available on Patreon as well if you want to check it out and see if it's your thing. There's 5-minute previews, I think, for most of the episodes, at least all the recent ones.
Is that the email we've been getting? I keep getting that notification. It's like, your audio preview is ready, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
So I never enable those. So if those are enabled, that's Ethan, and I'll start enabling them from now on.
I specifically enable them, yeah.
I'll start enabling them from now on.
Everyone gets 5 minutes of free Lore Boys.
It takes longer to load if you put the preview, so I always just skip it. But if we're doing that, we're doing it. Okay.
Okay. This is how we learn. This is exactly how the entire Lore Boys operation is run. So go ahead and throw some money at this.
The whole time, man. If you thought this guy trying to think of cell phones over the course of 1,800 years was slow, boy howdy do I have some Lore Boys news for you.
I'm just proud of us for getting something out every week on both normal channels and Patreon for the longest time. You know, and if we have a little preview miss here and there, we're still making it out.
That's all good.
Sometimes I wonder if the gods are punishing me for stealing fire from them and gifting it to humankind, and this is the punishment they've chosen for me. Of course, if you don't trust Patreon, we do have Lore Boys Prime, something we've always offered. This week we're offering something as special as ever. So we do need a fish tank manager over here at Lore Boys HQ. Everyone who signs up for Lore Boys Prime is going to be signed up for it. Obviously, we're all putting our brains in various kinds of jars. I'm actually working on a prototype pigsty terrarium. It's pretty exciting stuff. Involves a lot of mud and a lot of shit that I'm going to put my brain into in a glass jar, essentially. Cool. So I'm going to need someone to flake some fish food onto it for every now and then.
Or right? Just that dried shitty corn no one eats.
Yeah, sure. God. Dried shitty corn. Anything, really. I'll eat anything. You can put your old bodies in my terrarium. And I'll
probably have to pick the worms out of that one if you just got all full of shit, right?
Yeah, they'd love it.
Well, I mean, they'll poop out some melange, which we'll talk about on a future episode, and then I'll live forever. I'll be a blue-eyed brain.
We'll spice up your life, baby.
That Van Morrison song.
Yeah,
blue-eyed brain.
You're my blue-eyed brain.
You're my blue-eyed brain. Sha la la la, shy haloo doo 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 doo.
I think that constitutes a lore boys.
Lore boys. Bye.